vocabulary.
Draconian?
Fash's tone came with a tinge of impatience now.
Saunier's choice of vocabulary hardly seems the primary issue here.
Langdon wasn't sure what issue Fash had in mind, but he was starting to suspect that Draco and Fash would have gotten along well.
Saunier was a Frenchman,
Fash said flatly.
He lived in Paris, and yet he chose to write this message in English,
Langdon said, now realizing the captain's meaning. Fash nodded.
Précisément. Any idea why?
Langdon knew Saunier spoke impeccable English, and yet the reason he had chosen English as the language in which to write his final words escaped Langdon. He shrugged. Fash motioned back to the pentacle on Saunier's abdomen.
Nothing to do with devil worship? Are you still certain?
Langdon was certain of nothing anymore. The symbology and text don't seem to coincide. I'm sorry I can't be of more help.
Perhaps this will clarify.
Fash backed away from the body and raised the black light again, letting the beam spread out in a wider angle.
And now?
To Langdon's amazement, a rudimentary circle glowed around the curator's body. Saunier had apparently lay down and swung the pen around himself in several long arcs, essentially inscribing himself inside a circle. In a flash, the meaning became clear.
The Vitruvian Man,
Langdon gasped. Saunier had created a life-sized replica of Leonardo da Vinci's most famous sketch. Considered the most anatomically correct drawing of its day, Da Vinci's The Vitruvian Man had become a modern-day icon of culture, appearing on posters, mousepads, and T-shirts around the world. The celebrated sketch consisted of a perfect circle in which was inscribed a nude male, his arms and legs outstretched in a naked spread eagle. Da Vinci. Langdon felt a shiver of amazement. The clarity of Saunier's intentions could not be denied. In his final moments of life, the curator had stripped off his clothing and arranged his body in a clear image of Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. The circle had been the missing critical element. A feminine symbol of protection, the circle around the naked man's body completed da Vinci's intended message, male and female harmony. The question now, though, was why Saunier would imitate a famous drawing.
Mr. Langdon,
Fash said,
certainly a man like yourself is aware that Leonardo da Vinci had a tendency toward the darker arts.
Langdon was surprised by Fash's knowledge of da Vinci, although it certainly went a long way toward explaining the captain's suspicions about devil worship. Da Vinci had always been an awkward subject for historians, especially in the Christian tradition. Despite the visionary's genius, he was a flamboyant homosexual and admitted worshiper of nature's divine order, both of which placed him in a perpetual state of sin against God. Moreover, the artist's eerie eccentricities projected an admittedly demonic aura. Da Vinci exhumed corpses to study human anatomy. He kept mysterious journals in illegible reverse handwriting. He believed he possessed the alchemic power to turn lead into gold and even cheat God by creating an elixir to postpone death. And his inventions included horrific, never-before-imagined weapons of war and torture. Misunderstanding breeds distrust, Langdon thought. Even da Vinci's enormous collection of breathtaking Christian art only furthered the artist's reputation for spiritual hypocrisy. Accepting hundreds of lucrative Vatican commissions, da Vinci painted Christian themes not as an expression of his own beliefs, but rather as a commercial compromise, a means of funding a lavish lifestyle. Unfortunately, da Vinci was a prankster who often amused himself by quietly gnawing at the hand that fed him. He incorporated in many of his Christian paintings hidden symbolism that was anything but Christian, tributes to his own beliefs, and a subtle thumbing of his nose at the church. Langdon had even given a lecture once at the National Gallery in London entitled The Secret Life of Leonardo, Pagan Symbolism in Christian Art. I understand your concerns, Langdon now said, but da Vinci never really practiced any dark arts. He was an exceptionally spiritual man, albeit one in constant conflict with the church. As Langdon said this, an odd thought popped into his mind. He glanced down at the message on the floor again. "O draconian devil, O lame saint."
Yes?
Fache said. Langdon weighed his words carefully. I was just thinking that Saunière shared a lot of spiritual ideologies with Da Vinci, including a concern over the Church's elimination of the sacred feminine from modern religion. Maybe, by imitating a famous Da Vinci drawing, Saunière was simply echoing some of their shared frustrations with the modern Church's demonization of the goddess. Fache's eyes hardened.
You think Saunière is calling the Church a lame saint and a draconian devil?
Langdon had to admit it seemed far-fetched, and yet the Pentacle seemed to endorse the idea on some level. All I'm saying is that Mr. Saunière seriously dedicated his life to studying the history of the goddess, and nothing has done more to erase that history than the Catholic Church. It seems reasonable that Saunière might have chosen to express his disappointment in his final goodbye.
Disappointment?
Fache demanded, sounding hostile now.
This message sounds more enraged than disappointed, wouldn't you say?
Langdon was reaching the end of his patience. Captain, you asked for my instincts as to what Saunière is trying to say here, and that's what I'm giving you.
That this is an indictment of the Church?
Fache's jaw tightened as he spoke through clenched teeth.
Mr. Langdon, I have seen a lot of death in my work. And let me tell you something. When a man is murdered by another man, I do not believe his final thoughts are to write an obscure spiritual statement that no one will understand. I believe he is thinking of one thing only.
Fache's whispery voice sliced the air.
Le vengeance. I believe Saunière wrote this note to tell us who killed him.
Langdon stared. But that makes no sense whatsoever.
No?
No, he fired back, tired and frustrated. You told me Saunière was attacked in his office by someone he had apparently invited in.
Yes.
So it seems reasonable to conclude that the curator knew his attacker. Fache nodded.
Go on.
So if Saunière knew the person who killed him, what kind of indictment is this? He pointed at the floor. Numeric codes? Lame saints? Draconian devils? Pentagrams on his stomach? It's all too cryptic. Fache frowned as if the idea had never occurred to him.
You have a point.
Considering the circumstances, Langdon said, I would assume that if Saunière wanted to tell you who killed him, he would have written down somebody's name. As Langdon spoke those words, a smug smile crossed Fache's lips for the first time all night.
Précisement,
Fache said.
Précisement.
I am witnessing the work of a master, mused Lieutenant Collet as he tweaked his audio gear and listened to Fache's voice coming through the headphones. The agent superior knew it was moments like these that had lifted the bull to the pinnacle of French law enforcement.
Fache will do what no one else dares.
The delicate art of cajoler was a lost skill in modern law enforcement, one that required exceptional poise under pressure. Few men possessed the necessary sang-froid for this kind of operation, but Fache seemed born for it. His restraint and patience bordered on robotic. Fache's sole emotion this evening seemed to be one of intense resolve, as if this arrest were somehow personal to him. Fache's briefing of his agents an hour ago had been unusually succinct and assured.
I know who murdered Jacques Saunière,
Fache had said.
You know what to do. No mistakes tonight.
And so far, no mistakes had been made. Collet was not yet privy to the evidence that had cemented Fache's certainty of their suspect's guilt, but Collet knew better than to question the instincts of the bull. Fache's intuition seemed almost supernatural at times. God whispers in his ear, one agent had insisted after a particularly impressive display of Fache's sixth sense. Collet had to admit, if there was a God, Bézu Fache would be on his A-list.